everybody, this is Matthew Rathman, and we're going to chat for a couple minutes about mastering your biography. This is a really important part of your business, letting people know who you are. And it's important for your followers, the tribe you're creating, your readers, your potential clients and customers, to get to know you a little bit. We know that about 69% of consumers are going to Google you before they make an election to work with you or not. Even those who know you personally still may be checking you out online to see who you are and what you're all about, and are you really going to be the professional that can work with them. So this is a pretty important thing to get your messaging across for those consumers. And in a world where content marketing rules, it's going to be important for you to have a meaningful and engaging bio that defines who you are. But first, we have to start with defining who they are, who your audience is, because it is about them. And so we look at personas. So it's important for you to understand that we have a pretty broad range of consumers in most of our marketplaces now. And NAR's profile or generational profile of buyers and sellers shows us that there's a pretty equal distribution of baby boomers, Gen X, and Gen Y across our active marketings, with maybe a higher emphasis right now or a higher percentage of consumers being in that Gen X group. Now, we get trapped in this market of me, and we think that our friends, our family think as we do, and that they may be the same type of consumers, and you personally may never consider to go look at someone's LinkedIn or Facebook or webpage bio, but your consumer does, especially that Gen X or Gen Y group. And so if I'm going to be focused on creating content that matters to them, I need to know who they are. So one of the things that I'll challenge you to do first, before you even really start writing your bio, is to go to resources like NAR, RPR, the Realtor Property Resource, or your local market statistics, whatever they may be, and find out who that consumer is. And then sketch out just 1 or 2 lines about who you think they are. So for example, if I read that in my marketplace, the average consumer makes $78,000 a year, has a 2-year college degree, 2.1 children or 2.5 children, and are married, and are average of 40 years old or 38 years old, I'm going to write out, just so I have it visually there and in my mind, that a little story. So this persona could be that Jacob and Jezebel are married with their 2.3 children who go to public school, and they've been working for a long time. Both of them have careers, and Jacob travels an hour to work, and it's time for them to sell their home. That is going to give me a pretty good image of who they are, so that I can write towards them, that I can create content that would be meaningful towards them and perhaps not be all over the place. One of the biggest mistakes I think most agents make is that they try really hard to create content or marketing materials that span all the generations in the consumer sphere, and that's just not a very effective approach. You may have to create 3 different bios eventually, or 3 different marketing centered groups, or better yet, just define who your consumer is and target just them. So know who your audience is, write a little persona on them so that you know who you're writing to. The second thing we want to talk about in that world is finding the time to actually focus on writing. Far too often, I think the agent, whether they're newly transferred to a firm or they're brand new to the business, are sitting at their desk with a manager standing over top of them saying, hey, I really need a bio to get your web page up and running, or your profile online up and running. And we sit down and just haphazardly write something about ourselves just to get it done. This is a very ineffective approach. It's not going to be impactful to your reader. It's going to come across exactly as it is, and that is thrown together with the intent to fill in the blanks. So it's much better to find time that is good for you to go write. And for me personally, I have 2 environments that I like very much in which I write. The first one could be a coffee shop. I don't know what it is, but I like the energy of people moving about, and I like sitting in the corner in a coffee shop, maybe your earbuds on, listen to music, and it frees my mind a little bit to write. Or the second one, maybe early in the mornings with the fire crackling in the fireplace and the dog sitting nearby, when it's just the still of the house is conducive to thinking and focusing on one thing. And that may be the perfect time for you to just start scribbling out an outline about who you are, why it's important to them, and when they read it, what they're going to need to gain from it. Your reader needs to enjoy reading about you. It can't be the same old thing. So if you go online and look, and over a decade of teaching, I've engaged many agents. I've looked online at their profiles before I go into a certain marketplace to teach, or as a broker, I've read countless profiles, and most of them are very flat and very boring, or they're the opposite extreme, and I feel like it's a Tinder account and they're trying to find a date. It needs to be something that I will connect with. And if you read most bios, you can put your finger over the top of the name of the person writing it, and it sounds like every other realtor. And that's absolutely the last thing you want to do, is not be unique. You need to have some connection with your reader in a meaningful way that sets you apart from others. Tell them a story, but tell them your story from their point of view. What matters to them is going to be the most important part of that story. And you can ramble off a bunch of acronyms or how many years you've been XYZ producer. And recently I read a bio that said this person had been a lifetime producer. I don't even know what that means, and I certainly don't think the consumer knows or cares. And most of them are fairly cynical, especially in the Gen X and Gen Y world, and are going to find that a pretty obnoxious tagline if that's all you have to offer them. So it's going to be important to make sure you tell your story, but with their point of view. Why does it matter? Why do they benefit? And answer some questions about yourself. Who are you? Why would they choose you? How are you unique in this space? And what one or two things could they actually connect with? So who are you? Your name, of course, is going to be important, but what we're really talking about here is what personality traits do you have that you can bring to them as their advocate to help in this process? Why would they choose you? And why are you different than other people? But that connection part is the most important there. Are you a dog person? Or are you a local person who is engaged in SPCA or family, or whatever you're doing outside of just being an agent? These are important questions to them. While you're writing, remember that Google is also reading this. So some of the things that you're maybe putting in there need to be keywords. You may want to use the city and state you're marketing in. And I know I get pushback from agents sometimes that say, I serve multiple counties or regions. I don't want to be boxed into just one. Well, when someone goes to Google, they're searching for real estate agents in Fredericksburg, Virginia, or Stafford, or Prince William, or just even Virginia. But that's so broad that you may get lost in that search index. So writing is not only answering the questions we've just asked, it's also going to be important to put those keywords. Your name should be in there, the city and state, the company you're with, the type of properties that you service, the word real estate, or a phrase real estate rather, or word buyer or seller, should all be implemented into your biography to ensure that people who are searching can find you. You're going to need 3 bios, essentially. You're going to need 1 social bio. These are short 1-sentence or 2-sentence descriptions of who you are for Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever online resource you have or profile. Another will be a short bio. This is generally 1 paragraph, and this 1 paragraph will be used for the profile on your company page or franchise site, or maybe even on Realtor.com or Zillow. And then your full bio. This is a much lengthier story about who you are and who you are to your clients that is going to be used on your webpage. And don't worry about being too expansive here. Just make sure you break it up well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But make sure you have your story written out. I recommend that you start with the full bio. Write the long one first, and then summarize to a short bio of 1 paragraph, and then take that 1 paragraph and abbreviate it even more down to your social bio. You're going to want to get a Word document or Evernote or somewhere where you can save these, because you're probably going to copy and paste them to many different platforms. So this is an example of a social profile. Here's my 1 sentence. You notice I use my name there. I have hashtag FXBG is for our hometown, the hashtag for our hometown. You can see Fredericksburg, Virginia is part of that description, so I didn't need to implement it here. And I just want to do something that's engaging and quickly can be scanned. The short bio is basically, as I said, in 1 paragraph. This may be used for certain web pages or profiles across the internet. And then your full bio may answer a lot more questions. Your philosophy about them, who you work with, testimonials from past clients, what you do outside of real estate. And this is often going to be a page on your primary website. So here's again the recommendation. Write the long version first, summarize your long version into 1 paragraph, and that 1 paragraph then into 1 sentence. One of my favorite authors on the topic of writing is Anne Hanley, and she has 12 steps. So in those 12 steps, the first one is going to be to set a goal. Who's your target? Remember we talked about the persona earlier. So I chose a 38-year-old husband and wife with two and a half children. The children go to a local public school. They have a dog named Pixel. They have $78,000 a year. He commutes, and that's my goal, is to reach those folks and convert them into potential clients. I'm going to reframe that goal and make sure that I answer questions they care about and only write a thing about what the client cares about. I am not going to write something that's just simply self-aggrandizing or that tells promotes me. There's a way to do promotion and tell a story without sounding as if you're a third party simply bragging on yourself. And in that regard, I'm going to be unlike most of the other speakers out there, and I'm going to say write in the first person. I know that traditionally business writing and these profiles you're coached to write in the third person. But the reality is no one reading that, none of your buyers or sellers, no other broker or agent believe that you're so successful that you have a writer following you around throughout the day, figuring out who you are and writing your story for you. No one believes that. They know that you're writing about yourself. So earlier I mentioned to make sure your name is in your bio. So now you're questioning, if I'm writing the first person, how does that happen? Very simply, start off your bio with, "Hi, my name is Matthew Rathbun." And of course, hopefully you'll insert your own name and not mine, but that first line is very important. Remember, Google indexes pretty much the first two sentences of your biography or your bio. So make sure you put your name in there, but again, introduce yourself and then continue to write in the first person. Have a conversation with the consumer who's reading your bio. So make sure you've reframed it and then seek out data. If you're going to use testimonials, make sure they're legit and current and they're relative to what the reader's looking for. If you're going to talk about the marketplace, have the correct information or statistics. If you're going to tell anecdotal stories about yourself, scribble them out first before you start writing the full draft, and make sure that they're relevant to what you're writing. Then organize your thoughts. Do a quick outline of the 5 things that you want to make sure important and what flows well, what makes the most sense about this. And then write to one person. Write as if you're having a conversation. Focus on, get that image of that persona of that 38-year-old wife who at 11 o'clock at night, while realizing they need to sell their home, what is she reading? What's going to connect to her or him as they peruse your bio? And then produce your ugly draft. This is my favorite part of Anne's 12-step outline here. Just write. Don't be so focused on spelling or grammar or punctuation. Just go freely write what you think is important, and then walk away, maybe overnight, maybe a whole day, and then come back and start to clean it up. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to realize that after you've done the ugly draft and you've walked away and you come back, there's a lot of stuff in there that wasn't necessary or wasn't relevant or frankly just went off the rail from your original messaging. And you're going to restructure, and this is where you're going to apply your grammar and punctuation to make sure spelling is correct and the right formation of the word and syntax of that is put together in a way that's well read by your consumer. Then you're going to add your headlines. Every second paragraph or so should have a break in it and a headline to tell the person what they're reading next is important to them. And then do your bio cap. What they need to know, what one line or 5 words even at the top of that bio is actually going to tell them what they're going to be reading next and who you are. Then have someone else edit it. I don't know about you, but I can easily read somebody else's writing and find tons of mistakes in it. But I find it harder to do when it's my own writing. And then after we have someone else edit it, we're going to do one final look. Is this really what I want to post? Did the person editing it really capture my feeling, my voice in there? Or did they take it and strip it out and put their own in? I need to go back and tweak that to make sure that editing is done for grammar issues and spelling issues and not tone and voice. After that final look, then we're going to hit publish. Then we're going to distribute it and give it to everyone that we need to. Before I even give it to the editor, one of the apps that I would recommend trying out, it's free, it's very easy, and it's very good. It's called the Hemingwayapp. You copy and paste your text into this app, and it's going to tell you what recommendations for spelling or punctuation that you need. And also on the right-hand side, you'll see it gives you a readability score. Typically, we want 6th, 7th, or 8th grade reading level for most consumers out there. Sad truth, but it's If you overwhelm them, if you use the words that are too large, or you use very rarely used words, antiquated language, it may be harder to read. So Hemingwayapp will tell you not only your grammar, not only your spelling issues, but also what grade level reader you want. And it'll give you some recommendations on how to clean it up if you're a little ahead of yourself. So those are some tools to help you quickly put together your bio, and then make sure you want that you post your bio everywhere it needs to be. So your franchise website, your company website, your social media profiles, Zillow and Realtor.com would all be the first places I would make sure you've got what you need. At this point, whether you're assuming that you're starting out, either again transferring to a new firm or a new agent, stick with the one solid bio. But over the next year, within 6 months, you're going to want to have unique stories for each of those platforms. Your reader on Zillow or Realtor is going to be different than one going to your website. You may want to primarily reach out to sellers. On your website, you have a story about helping sellers. But Zillow and Realtor are going to be primarily buyer driven. So now you're going to want to refocus on the buyer, or rewrite your persona so you can restructure your bio to reach out to who's actually using those sites. And you do want them a little bit different so that Google doesn't start to see them as the same thing, and it may index them differently and add them in different places. That's a little bit more advanced, and that's something you can grow into. For now, you just want to make sure you have good, solid, well-written bios with good readership on all those other platforms. And keep them fresh. About every 18 months to 2 years, you're going to want to rewrite all over again and put them in all those places. And last but not least, don't forget your disclosures. Every state has different regulations, but for most of them, they're fairly consistent. The one consistent across the country is for realtors, you need to have 4 elements. 1, your name. Your name is your license at your real estate commission. 2, you need to disclose that you are a realtor. 3, the city and state of the office you report to. And number 4, all states in which you hold an active license. Those 4 things should be at the end of every bio, or at least on the page on which you've written your bio, to make sure you're in compliance. So if you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to me. Here's my contact information. Hopefully this has been helpful for you, and I appreciate you listening.